He's not free to go about and do what he wants to do. For the next, 89 months or thereabouts, he's going to be under the control of the federal government. And that's no little thing for a guy like this.
I've interacted with him. I've worked on the facility with him. I've conversed with him. Not in-depth conversation, but he's very respectful. He's well aware of his surroundings. Nothing really matters anymore.
Well, it makes sense, right? I mean, he's very high profile.
Yeah.
Ex-prisoners, criminal lawyers, and even prison officers are now saying what Diddy's life in jail might be like. He was already attacked at MDC and almost stabbed, and it looks like things will only get worse for him. The crimes he committed and the people he hurt are now catching up with him. Even after he gets out, life won't be easy. A list of strict rules he must follow after his release has just been shared, and if he breaks any of them, he could be sent back to prison.
Here's the thing. Diddy is symptomatic of just power gone awry. He's going to have to register as a sex offender. And he'll probably have to do that for 10 years. And if he doesn't, guess what? That's a separate crime altogether. So this can follow him. So if you're thinking, oh, Diddy got off, blah, blah. Well, his lawyers did a good job. And, he still has the right to appeal his conviction and his sentence. It ain't going to go anywhere because the evidence of the Mann Act violations were overwhelming. He's now tagged with 2 felonies. He's not free to go about and do what he wants to do. For the next, 89 months or thereabouts, he's going to be under the control of the federal government. And that's no little thing for a guy like this. So here's what supervised release is going to be like for him. It'll be intense at first. They'll drug test him. They'll put monitoring software on his devices. They will, they'll have constant meetings and check-ins and that kind of thing once he gets out of prison. And as time goes on and he demonstrates compliance, the supervision will get less and less intense, probably to the point where he just has to call in once in a while. But if you get too complacent and all of a sudden, you don't register, or all of a sudden, porn's an addiction, right? And, if you're looking at porn all the time, guess what? It's tough to stop that. It just is. And I've known clients that have, violated their conditions over and over again, and they wind up going back to prison. Now, Diddy seems to me like he's got some discipline. He knows where he wants to be, where he doesn't want to be. And I don't think you're going to see too much trouble with Diddy. I just don't think you're going to. But very well could be that he doesn't follow the rules. And, the first violation could be like 18 months. The second violation could be this, Or he could be demonstrating such good compliance that he gets off.
According to former mobster Michael Franzese, Diddy might use his money to make friends and try to protect himself in jail. In the coming weeks, the Bureau of Prisons will decide which prison Diddy will be sent to. No matter where he ends up, he'll need to pay for protection. Diddy still has a lot of money, around $1 million, and while some inmates will try to get close to him for that money, others might see him as a target.
He still has to register as a sex offender. He still has to do all these different things. Even after he's off of supervised release, he'll still have to register. And if he goes to Miami, because his home's in New York, he's got to check in with the local sheriff and say, hey, sex offender in town, that's what he got to do. I mean, this is not an easy thing for him to have to deal with down the road. But is it life in prison? No, it's not. Is it 20 years in prison? No, it's not. Is it even 10 years? No, it's not. But it's still going to be something he has to deal with. So it's no little thing that he is part of this community of people that have to be supervised, and he gave the government a big foray into controlling his life. And that's what happens when you decide.
Lawyers have sent a letter to the judge asking for him to be placed at Fort Dix, saying it's close to New York and would make it easier for his family to visit. But the real reason Diddy wants to go there is because it's a low-security prison and offers a special drug treatment program called RDAP. This program is a 500-hour, 9-month course for inmates dealing with substance use. If Diddy completes it, he could get up to a full year taken off his prison sentence.
Is the camp the lowest security and therefore more paddle and tennis and all the other things and what they call Club Fed or Camp Cupcake?
Yeah, they moved me to a camp by accident at one point, and there's no fences or anything like that, and I wasn't there for too long because they realized they made a mistake and put me back in the medium security. But they tell you when you get there, listen, there's no fences. If you want to leave, you can leave, but when we catch you, we're going to add another 5 years onto your sentence. And while I was in that camp for 2 months, each month somebody ran away. I mean, they always try to do that. But yeah, he's thinking of that. Yeah, he's thinking of that. But a medium security is not that bad.
Let me quickly go back though. Go back to that piece about he's high profile, so he won't get a camp. Why wouldn't he? I thought in a camp nobody's going to shank him because again they want out.
The overriding factor there, I believe, is he's a guy with a lot of money. And I'll tell you, this happened to me when I went in there because of the profile I had, because of the way they wrote me up. I had everybody and their brother inmate trying to do a deal with me when I got out, a business deal. They need money. Because of the fact that he's a money guy, I think he's going to have more friends than he will enemies. And in a medium security, normally nobody's looking to shank you. When you get into the higher institutions, when people are doing, a ton of time and there's no way you can benefit them, then you got a little more problem. But in a medium security, I don't think he'll have an issue at all. I really don't. He can be too much of a benefit to inmates that are always looking for something. And he could be a golden ticket for some people, at least in their...
He's a drug addict, and he believes that finishing this drug program could help him get a year off his sentence. But there's a big risk. One of the judge's conditions for his release is strict drug monitoring. This means Diddy's parole officer can show up at his house anytime and test him for drugs. If Diddy is caught using again, he'll be sent straight back to prison.
I only have a little bit of time left. I got to switch gears real quick to Diddy. So he is asked to be sent to a low-security prison out in New Jersey for where he will serve his, prison term. 4 years, served already 1, so 3, maybe out in 2.5. Do you think he's going to get that request? Do you think he's going to serve it at this low-security prison in New Jersey?
It seems like the logical place for him to go. I mean, you've got, based on all of the factors and everything else that goes into the Bureau of Prisons, when they get the file, so to speak, they get the PSR, which is the pre-sentence report. They have a certain criteria, and a lot of that criteria has to do with geographic location and then the severity of the sentence and the charges. All of that would tend to lean towards the placement at this New Jersey facility. So I would say on a bell curve,
Diddy is scared and reportedly started crying after hearing his sentence. He's afraid of what other prisoners might do to him once they find out he abused women. Usually, people don't even go to prison for breaking the Mann Act, but Diddy got 4 years because of how violent his actions were. He's already been nearly stabbed once, and now he's not willing to take any more risks.
Par for the course, pretty standard?
Yeah, so look, a lot of these conditions sound pretty harsh, but they're pretty standard. Things, as you mentioned, like no contact with victims, also no contact with other criminals, no access to firearms, also unsupervised, or visits, drop-in visits from probation officers at any time, mandatory employment. So many of these are standard. But what I do think is notable is the addition of required treatment programs. And it's not just one, right? It is domestic violence, but also drug abuse and also mental health. The reason why it's so notable is because we all remember the defense described this as a modern love story. And even though Combs was acquitted of the most egregious charges, it's really a message from the court saying there's really still something that is not right here. There's treatment that is required. There's issues that need to be resolved.
Can you tell us a little bit about his living conditions? Because I know that he's currently in Brooklyn, but he's actually asked to be moved to a federal facility. Why? What would that do to his living conditions?
Okay, so very specifically, he's requesting to be moved to Fort Dix, to a low security prison. So that would very much ameliorate, improve his living conditions from where he is in Brooklyn. So this low security prison is more like a dorm-like setting and also has a specific drug abuse treatment program that he's requesting to be a part of. And sometimes people who go through this program successfully can get time off at the end.
Mm-hmm. Well, Angela, we also know that Diddy is going to be required to work 30 hours a week upon his release. Do we know if that's like, he can just do whatever he wants? He's the owner, obviously, of a company, CEO. Or is this something that the state or the courts are going to mandate?
So this is interesting. It is pretty standard, and the legal language is work conscientiously at suitable employment. So that doesn't mean that the government can tell him what job to do, but it does mean that the probation officer can veto what he chooses. And the real point here is access and rehabilitation and not a lot of free time, requiring structure. So given that his employment is generally self-employment and a lot of free time, it's not clear here how the probation officer will respond to that, what sort of restrictions they will put. But yeah, the probation officer can say this is not okay, too much free time.
Ex-inmates who were charged with similar crimes as Diddy have said that if other prisoners find out what he did to women, they'll definitely come after him. Diddy is really worried about what life in the general prison population, Gen Pop, will be like. Even while he was at MDC, he spent most of his time in protective custody and on suicide watch, showing just how unsafe he feels.
Is he safe though? And you say something about him getting stabbed?
I was going to say, Diddy's team is saying no, he's not going to be safe, because in court we found out that there was an attempt on Diddy's life, that there was a man that attempted to shank him, but they stopped it, the correctional officers, and they say Diddy didn't even want people to know that he didn't want to make it a big deal. But of course they're having that conversation about will he be safe because of who he is and how high profile this case is.
Right.
They're also having a conversation. Mark Geragos is a high profile attorney, a friend of Diddy's, but also the dad of Teeny Geragos, who led Diddy's defense about Diddy potentially being raped in court. And we can and just attacks on his life, because they say that people look at him as like a trophy or a prize, and to do something to him.
Well, what if other inmates hear all of the stuff that we've been hearing in the news all of these weeks, and they scared of Diddy?
That's not how they presented it. I don't.
That's crazy to say Diddy's a trophy. Like, he's looked at as a trophy in jail is crazy. Isn't that crazy?
But even more, Charlamagne talking about the inmates gonna be scared.
Lawyers, when they were speaking on Diddy being in prison and the circumstances him being in prison, I didn't never hear about this, and nobody ever said anything about this. And I want to know if it's in the prison records. They said one of the guards stopped a dude from shanking Diddy. Now, I'm like, if he was doing all this positive shit in jail, and they was talking about he was all the inmates loved him and they was employing him and doing standing ovation, I wonder what inmate was trying to shank him. Was that one of the Tupac? Was that one of the Tupac fans, or that was one of Biggie fans? Because they said that the guard, they said that in court. One of the lawyers, one of the guards stopped one of the individuals that was trying to shank him, bro. And that was crazy. Nobody, I never, that didn't leak. Everything leaks from prison, but that didn't leak. Nobody wrote home and said, yo, dudes is in here trying to stab Diddy up. But the lawyers mentioned that today. I want to see if they're going to investigate that right there. You know what I'm saying? And base that, or he probably used that, base that on trying to help Diddy getting into one of those camps or one of those programs that, you know, he ain't got to worry about nothing. And what's crazy is this, he got to worry about something now. You understand? Because he thought he ain't have to worry about nothing, because he thought he was going to a speaking engagement. They was that bold enough to be setting up speaking engagements as if he was going to get out of jail.
Gene Deal, who used to work in the prison system, said that people like Diddy usually don't last long behind bars. Even though Diddy only has to serve about 2 years, he's not mentally prepared for it. If things get too hard, he might even think about hurting himself. During his sentencing, it was clear he wasn't doing well. His hair had turned white, and he had lost a lot of weight.
What this guy did is disgusting. I don't think there's a person alive, a man or a woman, especially women, who are not going to hate this guy. Whatever he did was completely disgusting. It's beyond criminal. I don't even know what it is. I look at it like he disgraced everybody. He disgraced the black race by being a black man. I know a lot of black people, and they hate him for it because it painted a picture towards all of them. I think it's being followed all over the world. If he's not found guilty, or he's cut free, or he does a short amount of time, I mean, I could only imagine what the whole world would think. This is a disgusting country.
Guys in the mob did some terrible, terrible things. The murders were gruesome and violent and painful, and they served a purpose. They were meant to terrify people into staying in line, right? Compare that to the things that you've heard alleged from the witness stand and testimony under oath from a lot of these young women and some of the young men who were his assistants. Compare the guys in the mob to the stuff you're hearing alleged against Diddy.
If we did that in the mob, we would be killed for it. We would never touch women and children and stuff like that. So that's against our rules, our principles. We would never get away with something like that. There was a guy, Roy DeMeo and Gas Pipe, who became serial killers, killing for no reason, and they were killed. So, I mean, if he was in the mafia, he would, and we knew what he was doing, he would have been.
It's almost certain that Diddy was already paying other prisoners for protection while he was at MDC. 15 inmates wrote letters to the judge supporting him, which is highly unusual. It's hard to believe that someone like Diddy, who has been caught on tape abusing women, suddenly became so well-liked that other inmates would vouch for him. And if that were true, then why did someone try to stab him in the first place? Something doesn't add up.
You told me he was suicidal. That's why I asked.
Everybody's suicidal when they first go to prison. Everybody's suicidal. If you've never been to prison before, you've never been behind bars, everybody is suicidal. Then you get used to it. It becomes your livelihood. You learn how to stay alive. You got a crust of bread in the corner to sleep in. Everything else is a blessing.
But you knowing Diddy personally, do you think it's possible he might take his life?
It takes a certain individual to prepare itself to do a lot of years in jail. From the lifestyle that he had, I'm not saying that he can't. I just don't see him able to do time behind bars. Maybe if he'd be in a camp type situation, that's a possibility. But based on the lifestyle and what he's done and what he's accomplished, if he had to go behind those bars for a lot of years, I think that he may commit suicide. He'd do an Epstein.
Why do you think he didn't pull a Russell Simmons and leave the country?
They was watching him, bro. They was watching him. And then I think that he had to turn over his passport. Even if you own your own private jet, they have a system up there whereas that they supposed to check your passport and anything that you need to fly as if you were flying commercial.
Diddy is lucky he only got 50 months in prison. That's less than a third of what the federal sentencing guidelines normally suggest. Many believe his celebrity status helped him. He wasn't charged for the guns found at his home, not for the drugs, and not even for assault, even though there's video evidence and a confession. As if that wasn't enough, now even President Trump is talking about possibly giving him a pardon. People are finally starting to see who Diddy really is. If you want to stay updated on his prison time, the investigations, and what's coming next, don't forget to subscribe, turn on notifications, and share your thoughts in the comments.